Here in chapter 25, the book has introduced the fourth and fifth declensions, which are two new set of case endings for nouns. This exercise here, exercise 25C, is reviewing the fourth and fifth declensions. So we're translating some sentences and we're noting fourth and fifth declension nouns that appear. I have, just to help me in this, a photograph of all of the noun declension charts on page 267, nouns in the first, second, third, fourth, and fifth declensions, as well as a photograph of a number of common fourth and fifth declension nouns that appear on page 228. So we'll refer to these pages as much as we need to as we go through and translate the sentences that they provided here. In exercise 25C, they want us to read aloud each of these sentences here in these four blocks of text. They want us to mentally note the case and number of each fourth and fifth declension noun. So case would be nominative, genitive, dative, accusative, ablative, or vocative, and number would be singular or plural. And we are to pay special attention to each ending that could be more than one case. Then, once we've done those things, we'll translate each of these sentences here. What I'll do, just to make this go along a little bit quicker, I'll read the sentences aloud, and I'll translate one sentence at a time, noting the case and number of the fourth and fifth declension nouns, just like they're asking us to. And then I'll go through and translate the whole block of text, just to make sure that we haven't missed any details. So why don't we go ahead and get started. Media nocte tumultum magnum audivi, quae erat causa huius tumultus, magno cum strepitud boves plaustra pervias trahebat, primum strepitus proco aberat, tiende in via nostra erat tumultus. Let's start off with this first sentence here. Media nocte tumultum magnum audivi. We've got a fourth declension noun here with tumultum, which means an uproar or noise or commotion. That um ending, thankfully, can only be accusative and singular. So something is happening to the uproar. Our verb is here, audivi. It's perfect tense and first person singular. So you'll translate it as I heard. I heard. So presumably what the speaker is hearing is a uproar, not just any uproar, but a loud uproar or a great uproar. And when is it taking place? At midnight. So I heard at midnight a loud uproar. And the only fourth declension noun that we see here is tumultum, and thankfully it can only be accusative and singular. Tumultum, a fourth declension masculine noun meaning uproar or commotion. It can only be accusative and singular. Next sentence, quae erat causa huius tumultus. Quae just means who. Erat here is our verb. That's a linking verb that means was. Causa looks like our English word cause, and that would be the easiest way to translate it. And then we do have a word that we probably don't recognize right now, but they've given it to us as a vocabulary word. It means of this. And then lastly, we have tumultus, which is that same fourth declension noun. It's masculine. We have a macron over that us ending right here, which means it could be any number of possible case endings. It could be genitive and singular, and it could be plural, nominative, accusative, and vocative. So we've got three different case endings in the plural that it could be: nominative, accusative, and vocative plural. So let's go ahead, translate this, see what we've got. Quae might be better translated as what, either who or what. Erat was, and then causa is the subject complement. Who or what was the cause, and then huius is translated of this. Let's try to find out what case and number huius is. Huius is a demonstrative adjective. In Latin, these words are translated as this or that. Huius is going to be translated this. While demonstrative adjectives haven't been introduced formally yet, I can tell you that the charts for these pronouns and adjectives are found on page 270. And if you look really carefully, you can see huius here, which is genitive and singular. Genitive and singular. And since huius appears right next to tumultus, and tumultus itself could be genitive and singular, well, all of this lines up to translate tumultus as being genitive and singular. So you would translate the whole sentence as, what was the cause of this uproar? So we can rule out tumultus there being nominative, accusative, or vocative plural, and translate it as a genitive singular noun. What was the cause of this uproar or of this commotion? Let's go into the next sentence and clean all this up. Magno cum strepitu boes plaustra in vias trahebat. So magno cum strepitu is a prepositional phrase. Sometimes a Latin author will insert the preposition between the adjective and the noun that it's paired with in that prepositional phrase. So you would just translate this as with. Magno, I know, means great or large. Strepitu here is a fourth declension noun. That means noise or clattering. It's another fourth declension masculine noun. That U with a macron here only appears in the ablative singular, which is great because it also agrees with magno here, which is ablative and singular. Magno is a second declension adjective, so we would translate this as with great noise, right? This is the ablative of manner, indicating how an action is taking place, right? How is the action being done? With great noise in this case. Then we've got boes plaustra per vias trahebat. How are we going to translate this? Boes is masculine, nominative, and plural, and it just means oxen. So with great noise, oxen, trahebat here is our verb, which is translated as were dragging. Trahebat is imperfect, third person plural, from traho, trahere, which means to drag or pull. So with great noise, oxen were dragging. And what were they dragging? Plaustra, wagons or carts. Plaustra is a second declension neuter noun that means wagon or cart. In this case, it's accusative and plural. While neuter nouns have the same nominative and accusative case endings, I can be very confident that this is accusative and not nominative because oxen drag carts. Carts don't drag oxen, right? It doesn't work like that. Commonsensically, we have to render plaustra here as our direct object. And last, we've got a prepositional phrase, per vias, through the streets. I'll go ahead and clear this up. So, magno cum strepitu, with great noise, and strepitu is ablative and singular. That's our fourth declension noun. Oxen were dragging wagons through the streets. With great noise, oxen were dragging wagons through the streets. Next and last sentence, primum strepitus proco aberrat, tiende in via nostra erat tumultus. Primum is just an adverb that means first. Strepitus here is a fourth declension noun, and that us ending could be nominative singular or vocative singular. And since you're probably not going to directly address a noise or clattering, I can be very confident that this is not going to be vocative, but this is going to be the subject of our sentence here. So primum strepitus is going to be our subject. So first the noise, and then proco is an adverb that means far off, and aberrat is a compound verb. If you look here, you can probably recognize the erat ending. Erat is the imperfect form of the verb sum esse. Imperfect form of sum esse, the verb to be. And this word ab here is a preposition that means away from. A compound verb in Latin is a relatively common verb plus a preposition that slightly changes the meaning of that verb, so that here, absum would mean I am away or absent. I am away or absent. And so a berat here would mean was away or was far off in the distance. We can go ahead and clean this up. So first the noise was far off, procol in the distance. And then what? Tiende, then in via nostra erat tumultus. Tumultus here is a fourth declension masculine noun meaning uproar or commotion. That US ending only appears in the nominative and vocative singular, right? Aracus there. That US ending is nominative or vocative singular. I can blow it up, the charts on the preceding page there too. So if tumultus here, it's probably going to be nominative singular, same as this word strepitus here. So this is going to be our subject. So diende, which just means then or thereupon, then, and then in via nostra is a prepositional phrase, so I have to skip over that. Then the noise or the uproar, erat was in via nostra, in our street. In via nostra are both ablative, feminine, and singular. Remember that tumultus here is nominative and singular, and so is strepitus. Then the uproar was in our street. All again. Medianocte, at midnight, I heard a great uproar. Tumultum there is accusative and singular. Quae, what was the reason or cause of this uproar? And tumultus there is genitive and singular. Magno cum strepitu, with great noise, strepitu being ablative and singular. Oxen were dragging, clean this up, oxen were dragging wagons through the streets. First, the noise, nominative and singular, the noise was far off. Then, the uproar was in our street, Next sentence, multas res manibus nostris facimus, Euclides manus stalem tenebat, nam pueros scribere docebat, pueri arbores manibus et pedibus entia ascenderant, manus igitor iorum sedo sordidae errant, Euclides eos jusit manus statum lavare. Right, start off at the beginning. Multas res manibus nostris facimus. Facimus here contains our subject and our verb, translated as we are making. And what are we making? Well, that's going to be expressed by our direct object here, multas res. Res is a fifth declension noun that means thing. And this es ending here is going to be accusative and plural. And I'm even more confident of that because multas here, that as ending that I'm about to pull back up, is definitely accusative and plural. It's a first declension feminine adjective, since res is a fifth declension feminine noun. So res there is accusative and plural. We also have another fourth declension noun in manibus here. Manibus is a fourth declension feminine noun that means hand. And that ibus ending here is going to be ablative and plural. I can tell that it's going to be ablative and not dative because it just seems to be an ablative of manner or an ablative of instrument. How are we making things? We're making things with our hands. So ablative and plural. And this would technically be an ablative of instrument. So we are making multas res, many things, with our hands. This nostris here is also ablative and plural. It's a possessive adjective modifying manibus. We are making many things with our hands. Next sentence. Euclides manus stylum tenebat. Euclides tenebat was holding the stylus, and the stylus is a pen, It's a second declension masculine noun, so this UM ending is going to be our direct object. It's accusative and singular. And manu here is a fourth declension feminine noun that means hand, and that U ending with a macron over it is ablative and plural. I'm sorry, ablative and singular. So Euclides was holding a pen, manu, with his hand. Was holding a pen with his hand. Nam pueros, scribere docebat. Nam just means for. For, he was teaching. Docebat here is imperfect, third person, and singular. And it's from doceo, docere, which is the Latin word to teach. And a Latin word like this is typically paired with both a noun in the accusative case, like pueros here, and an infinitive to indicate who he was teaching and what he was teaching them to do. So docebat, he was teaching pueros, the boys, right, accusative and plural, he was teaching the boys to write. So Euclides was holding a pen with his hand, for he was teaching the boys to write. Next sentence. Puere arbores manibus et peribus antia ascenderant. Pueri is our subject, so the boys. Arbores here is a direct object. It's accusative and plural. We can skip over that down to the verb of the sentence because we need to figure out what's happening to the trees here. So ascenderant, which is pluperfect, third person plural, and it's climbed. So the verb means to climb, so we're going to translate it as had climbed, since it's pluperfect. I know it's pluperfect because I can recognize the imperfect form of sum esse there as its as part of its personal ending. So the boys had climbed arbores, the trees. And now we've got another fourth declension noun here, manebus. It's fourth declension, it's feminine, and this is going to be ablative and plural. It could also be dative and plural, but in the same way that the word manibus here, typically you do things with your hands. Things aren't done to your hands unless there's a verb that really draws that out. So I'm going to translate this as ablative and plural and use the word with to translate it. So boys had climbed the trees with their hands et peribus and their feet, and then antia is just an adverb that means before. And their feet before. The word there, as in their feet and their hands, is not in the sentence, but it's implied. So if you have that, that's great. If you don't have it, that's okay. So the boys had climbed trees with their hands and feet before. The boys had climbed trees with their hands and feet before. Next sentence, manus igitor iorum sordidae errant. Igitor is an adverb that means therefore. Manus here could be a couple of different case endings. It could be genitive and singular. Could be nominative and plural. Sorry, having a hard time here. Nominative and plural, accusative and plural, and vocative and plural. So there's a number of different options that it could be. Errant here definitely helps. Errant is third person and plural, and it's from the verb to be, sum esse. You're going to translate it as were. So it's probably not going to be genitive and genitive singular, but let's keep translating. So therefore, and then iorum sordidae is nominative feminine and plural. Iorum here is genitive and plural. It's a personal pronoun that you would typically translate as of them or their, which is what they've given you. It's in the genitive plural case. So we're going to translate this whole sentence as, therefore, their hands, errant, were dirty. In this case, manus needs to be translated as nominative and plural. So it's not accusative or vocative plural or genitive singular, but it's the subject of our sentence. Therefore, their hands were dirty. Their hands were dirty. Next and last sentence, Euclides ios jusit manus statim lavare. Euclides is our subject. just adheres to our verb. It's perfect tense, third person singular, translated as ordered. So Euclides ordered. And then eos is a personal pronoun that means them. So Euclides ordered them. Lavare, to wash. And then manus here, which is another fourth declension noun. Manus, that us ending with a macron over it, could be genitive in singular, nominative in plural, accusative in plural, or vocative in plural. Context here would necessitate that manus here is accusative in plural. What Euclides ordered them to do was to wash their hands, So we need to take manus here as being accusative and plural. And then statim is the last word here, which is an adverb that means immediately. Euclides ordered them to wash their hands immediately. All right, let's go on to the next one, number 3. Multos dies in vila mane bamus, vinet tamen dies redetus, and que se erat aeter triam diarum, facere quod ad urbem calerme redire volebamus, io de discesimus duos des per viam appiam aeter facibamus, tertio de Roma perviniemus. There we go. So, start off with this first sentence here. Multos dies. Multos is an accusative plural, adjective meaning many. And dies is a fifth declension noun that means day. And while dies could be nominative or vocative singular, or nominative, accusative, or vocative plural, that dies ending shows up quite a lot. Since it's paired with an adjective multos that I am very certain is accusative and plural, well, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that dies is also accusative and plural. So let's translate the sentence. Mane bamus here contains both our subject and our verb. It's going to be translated as we were staying. We were staying in vila, in the country house. And then multos dies would be for many days. We were staying in the country house for many days. Next sentence, vinet tamen dies redetus. We have one fifth declension noun here in dies, which could be nominative or vocative singular, or nominative, accusative, and vocative plural. Context will help us determine which of those options dies is. And then we have redetus here, which is another fourth declension noun. I know that because its genitive singular form is the letters us with a macron over that u. Only fourth declension nouns have the letters us with a macron over that u as their genitive singular ending. And in Latin, you can identify the declension of a noun by their genitive singular ending. So whereas redetus, that us ending, there are a lot of second declension nouns that end with us, like servus here. Only the fourth declension has the letters us with a macron over that u as their genitive singular form. You just have to remember that's the rule. So that helps us to identify the declension of nouns. Redetus then could be either genitive singular, or nominative, accusative, or vocative plural. And context will help us determine which of those case endings it is. Let's go ahead and translate the sentence in order to determine that. So, vinet tamen dies redetus. Tamen is just an adverb that means however or nevertheless. And vinet is a perfect tense verb, and it's third person singular. And so something came is the way you would translate this. Could say he, she, or it came, but it makes the most sense to take dies as your subject, translating dies as a nominative and singular verb. It has to be singular because vinet here is singular. So, however, the day, and then redetus, again, could be genitive singular, or nominative, accusative, or vocative plural. But just consider the day of our return and how much that makes sense. However, the day of our return came. And I'm adding in here the word "our" just because it's implied. The day of our return came. So we're going to take redetus here as being in the genitive singular. So the day of our return came. Next sentence. Necesse erat aeter trium dierum facere quod ad urbe calerame redire volebamus. We've got one fifth declension noun right here with dierum, which is going to be genitive and plural, and it can only be genitive and plural, so you're going to be translating this as of days. Let's go ahead and translate the rest of the sentence. So, necesse erat is an impersonal verb phrase that means it was necessary. And what was it necessary to do? That's expressed by the Latin idiom aeter facere. That means to make a journey. So it was necessary to make a journey. Traerum dierum of 3 days. You could also say to travel, but it was necessary to make a journey of 3 days. And why was it necessary to do this? Translate the rest of the sentence. Quod ad urbem calerame redire volebamus. Quod just means because. So because, and volebamus, we were wanting. This is an imperfect tense, first person plural verb from volo vele, meaning to wish or want. Since it's imperfect, we want to translate it as we were wanting. And it's first person and plural. You can tell by the mus ending there. So I've used the word we to translate it because we were wanting to do what? To return, redire, ad urbem, to the city, quickly, calerame. It was necessary to make a journey of 3 days because we were wanting to return to the city quickly. Next, io de discessimus. We've got one fifth declension noun here with da, which is ablative and singular. It's part of just a simple Roman sentence, io die, which means on that day. And so discessimus here, which is a perfect tense, first person plural form that comes from the verb discedo, discedere, discessi, discessuras, which means to go away or depart. So we're going to translate this verb as we departed, io de, on that day. So we departed, io die, on that day. Next sentence. Duos dies per viam appiam aeter facebamus. We've got one fifth declension noun here with dies. And dies could be a number of different cases and numbers. It could be nominative or vocative singular, or nominative, accusative, or vocative plural. However, the case of duos here definitely helps us determine what case and number dies is. Duos is definitely accusative and plural. So I can confidently remove all of these other options here for dies. While it could be those other cases, context really necessitates that dies is going to be an accusative and plural noun because of the word duos here is also accusative and plural. Now that we know that, let's go ahead and translate the sentence. So, we don't have a subject, but it is contained in the verb facebamus, which you translate as we were making. That mus ending here means that we use the word we to translate it. So we're going to say we were making a journey per viam appiam, through the Appian Way, and then duos dies. This use of the accusative here means that you can translate it as in or for. So in or for 2 days. So we were making a journey through the Appian Way in or for 2 days. And let's go into the last sentence. Tertio die Romam pervenimus. Die is our only fifth declension noun, and it's ablative and singular, and it can only be ablative and singular. It's also paired with tertio, which is also ablative and singular. So I'll translate the whole thing as on the third day. And what happened on the third day? Romam pervenimus. We arrived at Rome. Pervenimus is a perfect tense and first person plural verb from pervenio pervenire, which means to arrive. So on the third day, we arrived at Rome. And that does it for number 3. And let's go on to number 4. So Titus rem miram nobis neravit serus qui nocte peruvias urbis ambulabat subito fugit periteritus quae erat causa huius re in via accurerat cani qui ut ipse dixit tria capita habebat de talibus rebus in libris saepe legimus sed numquam talem rem ipse videmus de hac re omnes cives multas fabulas narrant. Pretty long, but we'll just take it one sentence at a time. So, Titus rem miram nobis narravit. Titus here is our subject. Our verb is here narravit, which means told a story. Narravit is perfect tense and third person in singular. And the only fifth declension noun that we have here is rem, which is accusative and singular. Accusative and singular. It's modified by the word miram, which means wonderful. And this is great because miram is definitely accusative singular and feminine. And so it matches up with rem in its case number and gender. So Titus here told a wonderful, and the word rem means thing. Told a wonderful thing. That vocabulary word is available right there. And who was he telling this wonderful thing to? Nobis, to us. Nobis is dative and plural. It's a personal pronoun. So Titus told a wonderful thing to us. And the only fifth declension noun that we have is rem. Let's go on to the next sentence. Servus qui nocte per vias urbis ambulabat subito fugit perteritus. And this sentence here actually doesn't have a fourth or fifth declension noun. Perteritus I don't recognize right off the bat, but I also don't see it in this list of fourth and fifth declension nouns. And looking it up in the back of the book on page 296, I see that perteritus is actually a first and second declension adjective. So it's definitely not fourth declension. So I'm going to skip over it and we can just translate this sentence. So, servus, that's our subject. So a slave, qui, who. Qui is a relative pronoun that just means who. So who, ambulabat, was walking. Ambulabat there is imperfect tense. You can tell by the BA right here. Imperfect tense in third person singular. So who was walking, nocte, at night. Nocte is a third declension feminine noun from nox noctis. That means night. Since this is ablative and singular, I'm translating it as at night. And where was he walking? Peruvias, through the streets, urbis, of the city. Vias there is accusative and plural, and is the object of the preposition per, whereas urbis is genitive and singular, and so the streets are located in, they in a sense belong to the city. So I'm translating urbis here as of the city. So a slave who was walking at night through the streets of the city, subito fugit periteritus. Subito is just an adverb that means suddenly. Fugit is a new word that they've given us here that means to flee. This particular form of it, fugit, is perfect tense, third person singular. I know it's perfect tense because we've got this macron over this u here, which only appears in the perfect tense form. It doesn't appear here in the first principal part, so it can't be present. It has to be perfect. Has to be perfect. So suddenly fled periteritus, which is an adverb that means terrified. So a slave who was walking through the streets of the city at night suddenly fled terrified. Next sentence, quae erat causa huius re. Quae is just a question word that means who. We can maybe translate it as what. Erat is a linking verb, translated as was. It's imperfect, third person singular, from sum esse, the verb to be in Latin. Who or what was the reason? Huius re. Remember huius from a couple sentences back. Huius is a genitive singular, demonstrative pronoun or adjective. Who or what was the reason of this And then re, re is a fifth declension noun, and we're supposed to find these. Re could be either genitive singular or dative singular. Those are the two options there. Since huius is genitive singular, I'm very confident that re here is also going to be genitive singular. Let's go ahead and clean this up. So, re, that's our fifth declension noun, is also genitive singular. So we're going to translate this, this phrase as of this thing. Of this thing. Because that's what re means. Who or what was the cause of this thing? Who or what was the cause of this thing? And re here is a fifth declension noun meaning thing, and it's genitive and singular. Next sentence. In via accurrerat cani qui ut ipse dixit tria capita habebat. So, in via is a prepositional phrase that means in the street. And then you've got the verb accurrerat, which comes from the verb accurro, accurrare, accurri, and I'll leave out its fourth principal part, accursoresis, which means to meet or encounter. If you look here, accurrare, this matches up with the third principal part, accurri here. This particular verb is pluperfect, and it's third person singular. And so you're going to translate it as had met or had encountered. And this particular verb takes a noun in the dative case as its direct object, which is what we find here with kane. Kane is from the third declension noun, canis, which means dog. If you look here in the dative singular, you see patri and woki here with the letter I as their case ending, which is what we see here with the word kane. This word here is dative singular. So in the street, he had encountered a dog. He had encountered a dog. It's the way that you would translate this. Clean this up some. So in the street, he had encountered a dog, and then kui is a relative pronoun, meaning who. He had encountered a dog who ut ipse dixit. Let's clean this up some. Ut is a conjunction that means as, and then dixit is from dico dicere, which means to speak or say. Dico dicere, dixi dictus, which means to speak or say. This particular form of it is perfect tense and third person singular. So you would translate it as he said, and ipse is a intensive pronoun, so you would translate it as himself, so as he himself said, and then tria capita habebat. Habebat here is your verb, and translated as was holding, and then tria capita, capita means head, and this a ending here, since this is a neuter third declension noun, it could be accusative or nominative plural. And considering our subject has to be contained within the verb habebat, I'm translating it as he was holding, the dog was holding. We're going to take capita as being accusative in plural and not nominative in plural. So this dog was holding 3 heads. I'll translate that whole sentence again. So in via, in the street, he had met a dog, kui, who, as he himself said, was holding 3 heads. Tria capita, 3 heads. Next sentence. De talibus rebus in libris saepe legimus, sed numquam talam rem ipse vidimus. We have one fifth declension noun here with rebus, which could be dative or ablative plural. Dative or ablative plural. To determine whether or not it's dative or ablative, let's look at the preposition de, which takes the ablative. So as a result, it can't be in the dative case. So I can confidently say that rebus here is going to be ablative in plural. You also have another adjective thrown in there, talibus, which is from talus, which is a third declension adjective that means such or like this or of this kind. So taken as a whole, we would translate de talibus rebus, concerning things of this kind. Of this kind. In libris, that's going to be translated as in books. But since that's a prepositional phrase, we need to skip over it right now. Let's go to our verb here, legimus. Legimus here is present tense, first person in plural. So I'm going to translate it as we read. So concerning things of this kind, we read. And then saipe is an adverb that means often. So we read often in books. We read often in books. And then the last part of the sentence, sed numquam talem rem ipse videmus. Rem here is the same fifth declension noun, and it's accusative and singular. Talem is modifying it just like here in this prepositional phrase. So let's see what's happening to talem rem, a thing of this kind. Our verb and our subject in this particular clause is here in videmus. Videmus is perfect tense and first person plural. So we're going to translate it as we saw. We saw. Ipse is another intensive pronoun. This one is nominative and plural. So you're going to, it'll modify the word we here. And let's erase saw and write in we ourselves. And then we have another adverb in numquam. So we ourselves never saw. And then talem rem, a thing like this. A thing like this. And I'll go ahead and translate this whole sentence. So, de talibus rebus, concerning these things, legimus, we read, saipe, often, in books, sed numquam, but never, we ourselves saw a thing of this kind. But never have we seen ourselves seen a thing like this, or but we ourselves never saw a thing like this. And our last sentence. Di hoc re omnes cives multas fabulas nerant. Re here is the same fifth declension noun, and it's ablative and singular, and it can only be ablative and singular. It's in the same sort of prepositional phrase with di, haec, re. Haec is a demonstrative adjective that means this, and it's also ablative and singular. So you'll translate the whole phrase as concerning this thing, And then we have omnes cives multas fabulas nerant. Omnes cives are both third declension. In the third declension, omnes is an adjective and cives is a noun that means citizen. And so that es ending that you see here could be accusative or nominative plural. However, the next two words, multas fabulas, are definitely accusative and plural. And so as a result, I can rule out omnes cives being accusative here. So this is definitely going to be our subject. And then we have nerant, which means are telling or tell. Nerant is present tense and third person and plural. So concerning this thing, all citizens are telling or tell. Multas fabulas, many stories. Concerning this thing, all citizens are telling many stories. And that does it for number 4. Nice job with this exercise.